Hey everyone, welcome to the Industry Show. I'm your host Nitin Bajaj, and joining me today is Ravi Bhagavan. Ravi, welcome on the show.
Thanks so much, Nitin, for having me. This sounds like a really good idea, and I'm excited to be here today.
Pleasure is all ours. So let's get started with who is Ravi.
Ha. So, what I've found is that the older one gets, the more contemplative they become about who they are, which is kind of ironic if you think about it, right? So, you never think about who you really are when you're like 26 or 30. But when you were up in my age, you're always thinking about who am I really, right? So, I'll answer that in a couple of ways. When I was young, always thought about myself as a problem solver, right? But now, with a little bit more maturity, I think of myself as a trusted advisor. And in a lot of ways, being a problem solver has led to my being a trusted advisor. And I'll sort of explain that a little bit. So if look at my education, it's very analytical. I went to IIT and got my bachelor's degree there. I have a master's degree here from the US, and I also got a business degree from the University of Chicago Booth School, which is a very analytical program, and that sort of laid the foundation of my what I'd like to think about as strong problem solving skills, right? And so when I went into investment banking, I took those skills and I applied them in the field of investment banking. And over the years, I sort of learned the art of getting good outcomes in transactions for my clients. And it's I call it an art more than a science because getting a good deal done for your client is really a mix of a lot of soft skills in addition to some hard ones. Some of the hard ones are like industry experience and just knowing the M&A process and things like that. But when you think about really what gets a deal done, it's a mix of negotiating skills, it's psychology almost, psychology with respect to your client as well as counterparty, and a whole lot of counseling. And because a lot of the clients are sort of companies are haven't done this before,
Right.
and this is sort of their first experience with the transaction. So there's a lot of counseling that's involved at all levels. And as you sort of get good at it, your clients place a really huge trust in you to get the optimal outcome for them. And so you sort of become their trusted advisor, the go-to guy uh, to guide them through what is typically sort of a life-changing event for them. Typically the transactions, involves, selling off a company that they have built or raising a lot of capital, and that really ends up being a life-changing event for them. So right now, I sort of see myself as a trusted advisor, having evolved from a problem solver, if you will. Now, on the personal front, it's kind of interesting because I have a wonderful wife and a son in high school, and I like to be the problem solver at home, right? And I try to do that as best I can. But the fact remains that I willingly ceded the role of a trusted advisor to my wife, which has served me really well over 20 years of marriage. So, I leave it at that.
Wise words, right? Learn from experience.
That's right, exactly.
So Ravi, you've had an adventure, going from the problem solver to a trusted advisor, and as you've gone through this journey and you've taken a lot of people along with you, you've come to learn and share a lot of these journeys, but also you've been able to inspire and make things happen for several people around. Uh, Tell us a little more about Allied Advisors. What do you do, and who's your ideal customer?
Yeah, great questions, right? So, if you think about, what I do day to day, I like to sort of think about, what I'm going through right now in my current phase of life as more than just earning a paycheck,
Right.
right? Um, it should bring the kind of excitement that makes you wake up early in the morning and go to bed late at night. And I'm fortunate that I am in that kind of a situation. And what really excites me is deal making, right? And getting great deals done for my client. That's really what my passion is, right? It has been for a while.
Mhm.
So I do advise companies in the technology sector
Mhm.
on mergers, acquisitions, and capital raising. Largely, those are sort of the crux of what I do on a day-to-day basis professionally. Now, I'm part of a advisory group that you alluded to. It's called Allied Advisors,
Mhm.
and Allied is based in the San Francisco Bay Area. It's a young firm, but we all look upon ourselves as being entrepreneur bankers. And I'll sort of go into that in a little bit. I'm a managing director there at Allied Advisors, so I'm a senior banker who works closely with clients. The ideal client for us is one who is somewhat knowledgeable about the M&A process,
Mhm.
um, and sort of knows what to expect,
Right.
and is open-minded in working with us to get the best possible outcome. If a client goes into a process with a lot of biases, or with expectations around how things may pan out and things like that, that tends to skew the process a little bit. We always endeavor to get a client the best outcome, and more often than not, we like to get an outcome that's even better than what the client expected.
Right.
So for us, a good client is one who is in the middle market. Typically they have the valuation is less than, let's say, $200 million in revenue,
Mhm.
in value. They are, either founder-led and bootstrapped, or they're funded by a venture capital firm or a private equity firm. And it's a company that has developed a really good product, or a set of services, and they're growing nicely, and they're hitting their numbers.
Mhm.
And hitting their numbers is actually critical in getting a deal done while one is going through a transaction process. So I would say that's broadly who we think are make good clients for us.
Makes a lot of sense. And to kind of think about it from a different perspective, you're looking at people that are open-ended because a lot of what you do tends to be creative deal making. Right? It's not a cookie cutter that you come in and these things are going to happen. You have to get creative with what the opportunity is, where the market is today, what the sentiment is, so you can come up with something that's a win-win across the board.
That's exactly right. And it's also something as simple as who your buyer is going to be,
Right.
right? So if you think about it, there are some obvious low-hanging fruit
Mhm.
type buyers for any business. And then there are these outliers, the unexpected buyers, who our client may have never thought of,
Mhm.
getting into an M&A process, for example. And for us, it's satisfying to go well beyond these
Right.
low-hanging fruit, the obvious buyers, and bring to the table these outlier buyers, the non-obvious ones, who more often than not end up paying a really good premium
Right.
because they want to be in that space and they're willing to pay for it,
Right.
right? So if it's already a software company that's in exactly the same space, then they may look upon our client as saying, yeah, it's kind of interesting, but integration may be too hard. It's not complementary to us, and so on and so forth. So there could be any number of reasons why a company in that exact space may not look upon our client favorably. But if there's somebody outside that particular space and looking to get in, they're more likely to pay a premium. So, M&A is full of surprises, and we like to make
Yeah.
those things happen.
I think it's a lot about the mindset of the buyer, right? Where it's in the first example, it's more incremental to what they do, whereas in the other case, it's more strategic, and
Yeah.
hence the numbers can shift a little bit to the right because, like you said, they are strategically interested in getting in, so the number itself they're ready to work on it a little bit.
It's transformational for the buyer, right?
Right.
And if it's transformational, then they're more likely to pay, a good valuation.
And that's where your team and your skills and experience and connections in the network in this space comes into play.
That's exactly right. Our relationship with the buyers, not just in one particular sector, but across multiple sectors within technology, we bring that to bear and are able to build a compelling thesis for a client with these buyers, which usually gets them to the table.
Tell us a little more about just the size and scale of your operations, what geographies you serve. You talked about you're mostly in tech and especially with middleware companies. But give us some specifics around so people have a better sense for you know when they should reach out to you.
No, yeah, sure, absolutely. So another great question and very helpful in terms of how we position ourselves, right? So Allied Advisors is an advisory firm that is about 3 years old. It was founded by my partner Gaurav Basain.
Mm-hmm.
Gaurav and I actually worked together at a prior firm, and we sort of stayed in touch. And when he founded Allied Advisors, he invited me to come in as a partner, which I did about a year and a half ago. And in terms of sort of our reach and
Mm-hmm.
coverage and so on, we have three senior bankers today. Gaurav in the Bay Area, me in Southern California, and then we have a third partner who's actually based in Israel. And to us, that's really interesting because that creates for us the opportunity to do a lot of cross-border deals between the U.S. and Europe and elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And he's been very helpful in terms of those kind of transactions. We do have a junior team that supports us, an excellent junior team, and they do some really great work. And the work, and our clients invariably, almost in every transaction, compliment us on the quality of our materials, our deliverables. In terms of the initial documents, the marketing documents that go out. So, they're very appreciative of the quality of work coming out of our juniors. And in terms of sort of our focus area, if you will, as I mentioned before, we operate in the classic middle market.
Mm-hmm.
And what that means is it's typically transaction values less than $200 million, right? So, we could, easily, be looking at deals that are, 50 to $100 million as sort of, our sweet spot. We've done deals smaller than that,
Mm-hmm.
and we have done deals a lot larger than that. But I would say that on average, we probably come out in the 50 to $100 million range in terms of the enterprise value of that transaction.
Mm-hmm. Makes
And
sense.
I'll add a couple of other things
Yeah.
there as well, which is sort of important to place in context. Both Gaurav and I have been engineers in the past. And
Mm-hmm.
so, I think I mentioned that I have two engineering degrees, and Gaurav himself almost got a PhD from UCLA. So we bring not just the financial skills, the deal making skills to the table, but we also have, in most cases, a pretty solid understanding of the underlying technology of our clients. And I think that's important
Mm-hmm.
because we are able to place it in context. We're able to ask the right questions
Mm-hmm.
of a client to flush certain things out. And we also, obviously are able to articulate the story, pretty well, with the buyer community. So I think having our engineering degrees have actually really helped us to become bankers.
You can find the ideal markets, and because you understand the tech behind it and what is being positioned. Ravi, I would imagine the market has been pretty active, significant movement and transactions happening. What's in this kind of a market? What's the biggest challenge you're facing?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, honestly, investment bankers face challenges in every market, and it's just because M&A is such a interesting business.
Mm-hmm.
There's every situation is different. I would say we've been pretty fortunate to have had a lot of successful closings. For example, since the pandemic, we've closed 8 deals,
Wow.
and we expect to close another 3 to 4 deals by the end of the year. And on average, I would say we are working on 8 to 10 active deals roster. So we are very busy, obviously, right? And grace of God, or hard work and blood, sweat, and tears, and being able to close deals effectively, and getting the reputation as as good bankers who are able to get deals done. I think that has helped us a lot, and it also sort of has generated a constant stream of inbound um,
Right.
opportunities for us. We hardly ever do any outbound marketing for the firm. A lot of it is inbound. The only outbound that we do is we write a lot of articles,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so that sort of shows how we think uh, about certain issues that are relevant to our clients in the M&A business, in the transaction business, and that's usually pretty well received because we bring a pretty sort of mature perspective to it, and we do a
Right.
good level of analysis when we issue reports. For example, I just wrote a report on the low code and no code
Mm-hmm.
environment right now, which is pretty nice trend in the market, and that just got published by Sandhill,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to put that on LinkedIn, and people are going to see that as being a good article from our firm, that I penned. So things like that help in creating. So in terms of the challenges, it's definitely the differentiation, and everything I've told you about until now, everything that we do, it's all about getting that differentiation, because the fact is the investment banking industry is very competitive. That
Mm-hmm.
is a challenge. But I like to say that the proof of the winning is in the closing, right? So the more deals you close, the more likely you're going to get these referrals. You're going to get these other opportunities. It gives us the opportunity to win additional deals, referring back to the deals that we have won. So it really sort of it's a pretty virtuous cycle, if you will. Um, and uh, and and you know uh, and in terms of sort of other challenges in the marketplace, I would say that you know having done this for 20 years, Nitin, I've seen the worst and the best of M&A cycles, right? Uh, the last few years have been, admittedly quite good. It's been very good, right? With valuations going up and a lot of activity and a lot of sellers in the marketplace, and a lot of cash on the balance sheet of companies for doing acquisitions, and just sort of M&A getting more and more mature and widely accepted as a way to grow companies across all sectors. And new technologies coming to the forefront that motivates companies to buy into those technologies as opposed to trying to build them. So it's sort of the whole build versus buy thesis right at that point of
Mm-hmm.
time. But we're also seeing the worst of M&A cycles, which is when the markets are in the dumps and liquidity dries up, and CEO confidence diminishes
Right.
to the point where investments, decrease dramatically. And we saw that, after the mortgage crisis, that was a very, very clear
Yeah.
period for a good 3 to 4 years when M&A, especially the risky ones, where you have to take a little bit of a risk to get an acquisition done. Those just went away, and just the most obvious deals were happening. So with some luck and good planning, we won't see those kind of bad cycles again. But right now, things are in pretty good shape for the M&A market.
And this is when we are talking about challenges. What are you looking at when you see opportunities?
Yeah. So for us, as a firm, we are a young firm, but we've been, again, fortunately very successful
Yeah.
over the last several months. For us, the opportunity is to grow in a couple of different ways, right? Certainly to grow horizontally, which is increase the size of the team, and which means that we're doing more deals in a given year with more bankers, and that just adds scale. It creates synergies between the bankers and so on and so forth, right? So I think that's sort of the horizontal growth. We're also sort of looking more and more at vertical growth, which is going up market in terms of the size of the deals. And I think we've seen a trend already in the last 6 months where the average size of a deal has increased. We're getting more, sort of larger transactions, clients of, larger size, whether it's software or tech-enabled services, whatever the case might be, getting those deals into our pipeline. And for us, that's really exciting as well because, as that really gets us on the radar screen, pretty clearly. And so it's both the horizontal and the vertical growth we see as an opportunity. But again, neither one of those are particularly easy because, to add bankers to our platform is challenging from many aspects because it's tough to find really good people out there,
Hmm.
people who we work with, people who you can trust, people who can actually get deals done effectively. Those are not easy to come by, and so we have to be very careful and selective about who we bring onto the platform. So it does take time to build the team, but I think the vertical growth will put us more and more on the map as larger middle market bankers going forward, and we're looking forward to that.
Yeah, you mentioned luck and fortune as the primary reasons for your success. I think there is one, a lot of hard work, but also a reputation that you and your team have built that continues to one, bring in more business, but also spreads that network where you have these happy customers that want to come back and continue to work with you. So congratulations on that.
No, I appreciate that. And you're absolutely right, because if you go to the Allied Advisors website, you'll see a number of testimonials from clients. And it's probably like 3 pages long, right? And great testimonials. I mean, people absolutely love working with the bankers. And that is really the best compliment that we can get. And that's really what at the end of the day is our best marketing for us. Clients talking really highly of us, and what the fact that we went above and beyond, for them to get these deals done. So we live and die by a reputation in the investment banking space, and that's what has really created the momentum for us.
And going back to what you said about why you do this, kind of comes full circle because this is what energizes, motivates you, and gets you out of the bed and want to do this. Whether it's 12, 14, 20 hours a day, it's not work. It's the joy of making
Yeah,
things happen.
absolutely. And if we were to treat it as a job, and click into a computer at 9 a.m. And click out at 5 p.m. That's not really what getting stuff done is about. It's doing emails at 6 a.m. or doing conference calls, at that time, or having calls with your clients at 8 or 9 p.m. at night. I mean, it's really about that fluid nature. And to be honest with you, that's been sort of exacerbated by the work from home
True.
thing, right? I mean, there's like
Yeah.
this gray area between work and your personal life, which work from home has really caused. And for us, that wasn't very much different from the way we always led our lives in investment banking. And so, we take pride in the fact that a client can call us at any point of time in a day, whether it's a weekday or a weekend, and we will take that call. We
Yeah.
want to make sure that any issues are resolved at that point of time.
True. Like you said, it's more than business. It's counseling. It's being there for them, and it's almost like being there as a I don't know what it's even called, a matchmaker, right?
Yeah,
Where you kind
it's
of
almost like, I think there's a word, Italian word, unfortunately used more with the mafia clan, called consigliere. I don't know if you're familiar with that
right.
word, but
Yes.
it's almost like that,
Yeah.
right? So you become like the trusted advisor. I mean, for lack of a better word, I mean, it is a trusted advisor role at the end of
Right.
it, a consigliere.
So true. Ravi, as you look back in the rearview mirror and think about a success story or even a lesson learned, right? Things that you had planned but it didn't go the way you expected it. What's one example that stands out?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question as well. I mean, I guess the success story is, aligning with people in certain organizations in the past that have helped my career, tremendously, and in a very effective way, and broaden my experience in a lot of ways. Like, for example, I was part of a group in New York. You know, this was late 2000s, and a few years after that, that was associated with a really sort of globally minded organization. It's called Galileo Global Advisors, um, and the experience that I gained from there was absolutely tremendous from the point of view of being able to do transactions that are cross-border in nature,
Mm-hmm.
being able to travel abroad multiple times a year, particularly to India, getting to know a number of international companies in Europe, in India, and elsewhere. Being able to build a reputation to be able to guide them and advise them on their cross-border transactions,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that was just a tremendous learning experience, and that actually laid the foundation for the rest of my career in terms of being able to say that I'm truly a global banker. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not just a U.S. technology banker, but I'm really a global M&A banker. And I think that to me was a real sort of success story over a few years, that experience that I got. Um, in terms of sort of lessons learned, uh, you know, I- it's I would say that I've been in a particular situation where it just didn't work out culturally, and 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 um, and to me, that drove home the point of how important it is to be able to spend time with your colleagues and be able to do so and create these favorable dynamics with your colleagues and
Mm-hmm.
a sense of bonding with your colleagues. And if you don't have that in an organization, then you just are not going to be successful in that organization. I had a short stint at an advisory firm that just didn't work out, and it just was not a good fit for me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I didn't quite realize that going into the firm, but when it happened and started to happen, it became so obvious that uh, I had to be somewhere else, and I had to make a move. So there are such situations like that, but it's a learning lesson.
Mm-hmm.
And as you get older, you just learn to understand people, to understand culture of organizations. And I think I like to think that that was definitely a learning lesson for me in a lot of ways.
True. And now in your position, you're able to bring that to your own organization so other people don't feel that way.
That's exactly right. And that again goes back to my earlier comment about
Yes.
it's pretty challenging to bring new bankers on,
Yes.
because if they're not sort of seeing eye to eye with you, they don't have the same vision. That they're not a good cultural fit. When I say cultural, I don't mean like ethnic or anything. It's just culturally, how do you run your business? How do you do
Right.
spend your time? How do you um, treat your clients? What kind of a reputation do you have? All of that goes into sort of the cultural element of it. These are all soft elements, and if that's not a good fit, then it's not going to work.
So true. Ravi, let's take this a step further and get to know how you think, what has come to shape you and your beliefs and values. And the way we do that, as you know, is through a series of one-line life lessons that we would love for you to share with us. So take it away.
Yeah, this is a fun one, by the way. So, really like this one. So, the one that I really like, that like to live by is um, the saying that I don't know who came up with it, but it's a good one. It says, "Hope is not a strategy."
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
and I really like it for because it applies uh, very much to my business, which is the investment banking business, right? So, when we run a process for a client,
Mm-hmm.
we cannot hope that a transaction will get done for a client, right? Simply by sort of taking them to markets, showing them to a number of buyers. We cannot just hope.
Yeah.
We have to build a concerted strategy around gaining and sustaining buyer interest and converting that interest into a successful closing, of the deal, right? So there's a great deal of strategic thinking and execution of that strategy that needs to get done in these transactions to make them successful. So hope's not nowhere is nowhere near quite sufficient. On the other hand, hope can create motivation,
Mm.
right? And it does. I mean, if you think about it, a lot of people live by hope, right? And it motivates them to get out of bed and do the things that are required during a day, to improve their lives. And hope's a great thing. but it really is not a sufficient condition for achieving success in more complex situations, right? You need a definitive strategy,
Hmm.
put in place and execute it properly, for a successful outcome. So I definitely live by that. Hope is not a strategy. I'll tell you a second one,
Hmm.
which you also like, which is again a life lesson. Some people may disagree with this, but this is what I think. So perfection is the enemy of progress.
Yes.
Okay. And again, this is true both in our personal lives as well as in our professional lives, right? So if you think about it, let's say in my deal making sort of career, right? There's no such thing as a perfect deal
Yep.
for either party.
Hmm.
Okay. Um, you never strive for a perfect deal. What you strive for is uh, a deal where both the parties feel that they've achieved what's most important to them,
Right.
right? But they've also left something on the table for the other party. That's sort of the win-win that gets deals done. And by no means would is there the description of perfection in that kind of a transaction. And so perfection is really a utopian paradigm if you think about it, right? It's it's really something that can stall progress,
Hmm.
and perfectionists can get wrapped up in knots when they really should be focused on progress, right? And it applies to like a personal life too when you think about it. Just simple situations where, let's say, you're helping out of a group in terms of organizing an event, or doing whatever that is required to make an event successful. Do you go about saying, I want every single thing in this event absolutely perfect, or do you say, let's get it to a high standard, and let's achieve progress,
Hmm.
right?
Yep.
That's really what it's about, right? And that all sort of leads me to uh, talking a little bit about the Indian concept of
Hmm.
jugaad,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
And if you think of what jugaad is, it means it's a quick and a clever way to fix a problem,
Hmm.
right? And and by no means is jugaad ever about perfection. It's always about progress.
Yes.
Okay. And jugaad is what really has helped so many organizations, so many people get through the chaotic environments, and uncertainties, and all kinds of challenges and roadblocks in the daily lives, in the professional lives, in the personal lives. And it's all about progress, and that's really what makes the world go around. So I'll stop there. I love the word jugaad, and to me, you know uh, you know I'll take progress over perfection any day.
True. Love that. And for a lot of us, Jugaad is the way of life, right? It's especially for entrepreneurs. It's
Yeah.
the hustle is probably the nearest English word, uh, but it doesn't get the true meaning of it.
Exactly. And especially when, as you rightly said, as entrepreneurs, Juga, I mean, you know, you're a CEO, you're a CEO, you're CTO, you're a sales guy, you're the accountant, you're everything. You got to do, you got to do everything and anything that it takes to be successful and move things forward on a daily basis. And Jugaad absolutely captures that spirit. It's a beautiful word.
Yeah. Ravi, thank you for taking the time. We really appreciate having you here. And we would love to keep this conversation going, bring you back on, and talk a little more about some of the many deals you continue to make. Thank you once again.
Appreciate again, Nitin, having me on this forum, and I look forward to it.